what I wanted to ask you is to break down one of my personal favourite elements to build on the GSTM1 point. Can you talk a little bit more about glutathione conjugation and how glutathione may play a big role in the liver, if you can? I mean, we've been talking a little bit about maybe methylgloxal recently in relation to the liver and how that affects insulin. What would you say in relation to explaining the role of glutathione for someone's liver and how that may be helpful?
Okay, and just before I do answer
Sure.
that one, I'm just going to link to the sentence you made before you went over to talking about glutathione. And you were talking about the gut. And if anybody's new in the area of functional medicine and you kind of have a patient that you want to, inverted commas, detox, and that patient is presenting with gut symptoms, start there. Because basically you're bailing out a toxic ship if you...
That's a nice way to put it, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of like it keeps on coming in and you don't make anything like the progress. So for some people that's SIBO, for others it's Candida. You know, some occasionally even parasites are part of that issue. But whatever it is in the gut flora, work there, and that takes you up to 2 months, and people feel always a lot better because you've had to clean up their diet in the process, usually to get them off gluten, because once they're inflamed in their gut, their gluten intolerance comes along for the ride. Anyway, so that's just precursor. Start with the gut.
No, it's great.
Start with the gut, and then moving over to glutathione. Yeah, glutathione's the champion, the king, the master, whatever, detoxifier. It does the biggest part of the job. It's not that it should only work by itself, but when you have a patient who has a load of toxicity, always include something to support their glutathionation process, which the key precursor is N-acetylcysteine. So you can give glutathione orally. It doesn't get to the blood, it's gobbled up by the liver, so you don't see much in terms of plasma or serum changes with it. But people do detoxify nicely on being given glutathione. Just recently there are new forms coming out, like the adenal, and I always find a bit of a stumble on this, adenosol glutathione. So that apparently doesn't get broken down in the gut as much as the tripeptide glutathione does. But always people in the detox field do find supplementing straight glutathione to their patients is one of the ways to go instead of using NAC. And is it Cerida, the brand?
Yeah, the Sertria, the
Sertria.
Yep, yeah.
The Sertria registered form of glutathione has got more evidence where it works. So, you know, anything from us will have that type of glutathione in it. Okay, so you were talking about glutathione and then hinting about the idea of recycling and making whatever glutathione you've got last longer. Mm-hmm. And you know, the cheapest, simple way to add to a detoxing process is just to take vitamin C. You know, it just does so much. So partly because in itself it helps to recirculate the glutathione, but it also works on the PON1 enzyme too, and it's critical in upregulating that enzyme. So not so many people know this one because if you do know your DNA things, it often pops into the cardiovascular section, but it's also, some charts put it in the antioxidant section. But the key is peroxinases relating to the PON1. It's responsible for pesticides, the organophosphates and organochlorines, and so vitamin C also upregulates that. So just one simple, very cheap way of kind of upregulating some genes is with vitamin C. I mentioned that because it comes to mind. I once had a pair of identical twins at something like 2.5, 3. And Mum brought them both in, and she would like to do testing. And so we did a type of testing where, I don't use it very often now, but it measures to do with mercury detox, and how it affects the heme in the blood. And you can measure these various heme interferences and see which heavy metal is in the way of the blood production. Most heavy metals do cause some kind of anemia, eventually lead particularly, by interfering with the heme production. But so two young twins are identical, so yep, same genetics. One liked chewing on a vitamin C and the other one didn't.
Oh.
And there was a massive difference in the toxic level in these two kids measured by the porphyrins, is the term for the other. So yeah, one of them had no signs of mercury interference, and the other had quite significant signs just from chewing it at 250 milligram. vitamin C as a habit.
It
You
goes to show, isn't it? It doesn't have to be too overly sophisticated.
It doesn't really, even you just get people using vitamin C and some kind of polyphenol with it, like quercetin or transresveratrol. If you can get a bioflavonoid kind of vitamin C. And just that, anybody who you want to say, you want a bit of help detoxifying, or at the end of your sessions, maybe how you're going to keep this up, just make sure they're taking half gram twice a day. And doesn't need to be more,